Welcome back and thank you for staying with Africa Speaks. Now, in his first foreign statement after being sworn in as president, William Ruto revoked Kenya's recognition of the Western Sahara, stretching over more than 3 decades, in a tweet after one meeting with the Moroccan Foreign Affairs Minister Nasser Bourita. That tweet was quickly deleted and a clarification later issued by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs saying that Kenya's position on the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic was still standing and aligns with that of the African Union, which Western Sahara is a member. This controversy, seen as a diplomatic faux pas by some quarters, has attracted a lot of reaction both locally and continentally. Our reporter Mwangi Maina caught up with the immediate former Moroccan ambassador to Kenya, who was in Nairobi for the presidential inauguration, and reviewed the controversy revolving the renewing of ties between Nairobi and Rabat, as well as Kenya's now tiptoeing policy on Western Sahara conflict. Was Chip, let's just take a look at that particular interview.
Affairs in a leaked document says that Kenya's position still stands and it aligns itself with that position of the African Union. Remember, African Union recognizes Western Sahara. Western Sahara is a member state of the African Union. What do you have to say?
If you talk about the statement by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is called the memo, I am not going to comment on it because it's an internal memo and it was not supposed to be leaked in the first place. So the controversy, sometimes if you look at it deeply, you see that it's bigger than the people behind it. It's people who are not really happy about the new chapter, as His Majesty said in his letter to His Excellency the President, new chapter of cooperation between Kenya and Morocco. It's people who prefer their narrow economic or political agenda and not really engage with what this new cooperation is going to mean for the two leading nations. I always say that in the respective regions, Kenya in East Africa and Morocco in North Africa. But if you look at it deeply, you'll see that at the inauguration, I had the honor of being invited by His Excellency the President. I talked to many people. I talked, for example, to politicians like UDA MPs, governors, and others, and also ADM, and they expressed their support for the President's decision. And even if this controversy followed actually in the first place, like when the Honorable Raila Odinga said something that he didn't say, he came out and in his tweet and made it clear that actually that he is not against this decision, and he added something very important, that Kenya-Morocco relations are going to benefit the people of Kenya. So this should be, and people are sometimes believe that this just like happened, but maybe a lot of people don't know this is a long process. It started back in March 2021 when I received His Excellency. At that time he was the Deputy President, and we started actually explaining to him the potential of cooperation between Kenya and Morocco, and I made it clear that the Sahara issue was an obstacle. And then since then, I continued to actually talk to his advisors, even after I went back to Morocco in December 2021. And His Excellency was convinced that the best way to go is to stick to the UN decision on that issue, in the sense that there is no need to recognize an entity that is not recognized by the UN, and it is up to the UN to solve this issue, and that's why there is no need to maintain the diplomatic ties with the so-called Sahrawi Arab Republic.
Coming back to the 2021 controversy, of course, I understand the kind of diplomacy that you played before leaving Nairobi to Morocco, bringing the Deputy President on board. To one point, the then Deputy President, now President, seemed like he had contradicted his boss, former President Uhuru Kenyatta, on Kenya's position to do with the Western Sahara issue. I mean, Kenya has had a position when it comes to the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, meaning that Kenya recognizes that particular state. Still, Kenya sent an ambassador who presented his credentials to the Sahrawian President Brahim Ghali sometime back in May this year. Where does this leave Morocco?
Well, you say decade. The paradox of time and history is that we can go back to Nairobi, the summit of 1884. That's the African summit. At that time, the African Union Organization, that's how it was called, and that one was countries recognized the so-called Sahrawi Republic, but it was done at that time, that's during the Cold War. People had some sort of things to do with against Morocco in the sense that, that socialist communist era was more about overthrowing the monarchies than about considering strategic issues. So now I would say that the delegation that came from Morocco, led by our Minister of Foreign Affairs, His Excellency Nasser Bourita, bringing a letter for His Majesty, King Mohammed VI, that really you can actually, in 40 years, things happened. So it was not a quick decision. It is not something that happened overnight. As I said, it is a long process that started over a year and a half ago, and now it culminated in His Excellency William Ruto keeping his promises of, that's as you said, the media at that time, March and April of 2021, really reported about His Excellency the President's statements and his support of the autonomy. So I am rather disappointed when I look at foreign policy on this particular issue, because I really, that Kenya's constitution itself, what it says, it stipulates that diplomatic relations or foreign relations in general have to be established with a UN-endorsed nation, not with a movement, the Polisario, which we consider from our perspective as a separatist movement. 2, Kenya is a reference in international law. 3, Kenya always promotes itself as a peace broker, which is true. And TICAD, its role in Africa, and that means that it is against the interference in foreign countries' affairs, whether respecting the Charter of the UN or the African Union. So the question I'm asking is, why should the Sahara be an exception? Why should it be an exception in this case?
Ambassador, talking of economic policies, of course, that has been a very key issue when it came to the presidential campaigns. And of course, President William Ruto, when he was campaigning for the top seat in the land, was engaging much about how he's going to supply fertilizers to the Kenyan farmers at a very cheap rate. And of course, we know Morocco is one of the biggest, OCP, which is Moroccan state-owned, is the largest world-producing fertilizers company. The delegation that was sent by His Majesty the King from Morocco, led by the Foreign Affairs Minister, what carrot did you dangle?
Morocco's approach is not dangling carrots. It is really based on a Pan-African approach that His Majesty insists upon, which is a win-win approach. The way we do business is not to plunder, is not to come to Africa traditionally, just look for minerals, gold, copper, and so forth, but to really invest in socio-economic sectors that are very vital for the people, for the peoples of Africa. The way we do business is the business that is going to benefit the peoples, the African people, not individuals serving individual self-interests. So there is a real difference. There is a big difference in the kind of approach taken by some and the kind of approach taken by us. And we are invested, His Majesty is invested in the well-known expression of South-South cooperation, and His Majesty puts the interests of the African citizen, men and women, at the heart of any development, economic, social, or economic development projects. 2, people who say that, dangling carrots, should know that this is not the first time that we are willing to do business in Africa. Morocco, as you know, as even your media states recently, is the first investor in West Africa. And it invests in things, as I said, that are very interesting to the people, whether it's an agriculture, health care, education, electricity, and water management. So, dangling carrots is not the right expression, or maybe you say dangling fertilizers, but if you compare the carrots and fertilizers go to the people. They don't go to a particular party just for its own interest, but they benefit the people. And we were following what is happening in Kenya. Personally, I was always engaged with Kenya. I have been engaged with Kenya. I continue to be, because even after I left, this is a country that I love. My son is born here. So part of me is about Kenya.
The issue of fertilizer is so big in Kenya, and the president says that farmers should expect cheap fertilizers from this week. When are the fertilizers coming?
I cannot tell you, even if the media reported that they are coming next week, but I can find out, of course. But the most important there is that we made a commitment to bring fertilizers here in Kenya. Yes, we made a commitment. The question of time, it's a logistic thing. It has to be agreed between Kenya and Morocco, and you know that the new government is not set yet, so we are waiting. And once that is possible, then the two governments are going to talk, and then the fertilizers start coming. So when you talk about fertilizers, we are not talking just about state policies between Morocco and at the level of governments. We are talking about just farmers in places like Garissa, where it's very challenging agriculture in general. And then you see poor farmers, whether in Baringo, whether in Mount Kenya, really wanting fertilizers. We're listening to that kind of voice coming from the people of Kenya. And if we have fertilizers, God bless us with 75% of the world reserves of phosphate. And we have been present in Ghana, Ethiopia, Nigeria, and so forth. So why not share it with this lovely Kenyan nation? I call it nation because Kenya is not just any other country. Kenya is, when they ask me about Kenyan-Moroccan relations, I go back to the 14th century, and Ibn Battuta, the traveler, wrote beautiful pages about Mombasa, Malindi, and Lamu. So, fertilizers is one, but it's not just, we cannot reduce our cooperation to fertilizers. Fertilizers just because of the need that is now because of the war. And I would not even put the question as what does Kenya benefit from this decision? What do the countries, the two countries, will benefit from you too? And the good thing about our cooperation is that our economies are complementary. This is very interesting. I mean, there is CEDAW, there is COMESA, there are so many regional economic blocs. But with Morocco and Kenya, two leading countries, complementary in the sense that we are not going to be facing aggressive competition. What you grow is not what we grow. We grow, we have fertilizers, you have agriculture. You grow tea and coffee, and Morocco, as you know, or you might know,